Good afternoon, boys and girls. Today I'm going to show you the steps to follow when adding mixed numbers. Okay, so we are going to be working on topic 12.8, which is adding mixed numbers, and here are the steps we learned today in class. What I'm going to do is use one example. I'm going to follow these steps to show you how to add mixed numbers. So let's look at our first number. We have 2 and 7/8 plus 1 and 3/8. So step 1 tells us to stack the problem, which I've already done when I wrote it down. 2 and 7/8 should be on top, and 1 and 3/8 should be on the bottom. Please make sure your fractions are on top of each other and your whole numbers are on top of each other. I try to think of them as place value columns, so my fractions stay together and my whole numbers stay together. This will make it easier later on down the line. Okay, so step 1, stack the problem. Already done. Step 2, add the fractions. When I look at each fraction, I see the denominator is an 8. So we have 7/8 and 3/8. And because the denominator is the same, I could add them pretty easily. So I'm going to add 7/8 plus 3/8. I'm going to get 10/8. Let's look at step 3. It says to rename this fraction. 10/8 is improper, so I must make this a mixed number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little box over here for my work, and I'm going to turn this fraction, this improper fraction, into a mixed number. When I read it, it says 10 divided by 8. So I'm going to now write 10 divided by 8. When I do the math, 10 divided by 8 is 1. 1 times 8 is 8, and when I subtract that, I get 2. So my remainder 2 finishes the division problem. I know my 1 is my whole number, my 2 is the denominator, and my 8 over here remains the denominator. So 10/8 as a mixed number is equal to 1 and 2/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross this out because I'm not calling it 10/8 anymore. I'm calling it 1 and 2/8. Since I have a whole number and a fraction, I also have to take this whole number. I have to put it with the other whole numbers up here, and I'm going to cross it out once I've done that because now my fraction is only 2/8. Since I've renamed, now I can add my whole numbers. 1 plus 2 equals 3, plus 1 more equals 4. But I have all of this work in between, so what I want to do is I want to neatly move my answer over. So I have 4 and 2/8, and as always when working with fractions, your final step is to simplify. When I look at 2/8, I see that it's even. I start with the denominator and I say to myself, can the 2 fit into the 8? Yes, it can, so that is my greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide by that 2. Remember, whatever you do to the numerator, you have to do to the denominator. So that gives me 1/4, and my final answer equals 4 and 1/4. So 2 and 7/8 plus 1 and 3/8 gives you 1 and 1/4. I'm going to show you one more example. So I'm going to leave the steps up here, and I'm going to record example number 2 down low. Okay, so our next problem is 1 and 7/8 plus 1 and 2/8. So step 1 says to stack the problem. Let's check. My fractions are on top of my fractions, and on top of each other, and the whole numbers are on top of each other. My next step is to add those fractions. 7/8 plus 2/8 gives me 9/8. When I look at 9/8, I see again that this is an improper fraction. So I'm just going to make a little box for myself to show my work. When I look at 9/8 and I read it, I see 9 divided by 8. So I'm going to write that here, 9 divided by 8. So 8 can fit into 9 one time. When you subtract that, you have a remainder of 1. So my answer now is 1 and 1/8. So I'm not going to call 9/8 anymore. It's going to be 1 and 1/8. So I'm going to cross that out. But again, I have a whole number here. The whole number must go with the other whole numbers. It's kind of like regrouping when we were adding and subtracting. in our previous topics. Now that I've moved that 1 over, I'm also going to cross it out. The only fraction I have left here is 1/8. Now I can add the whole numbers, which is step 4. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. And since I have all of this in between, I'm going to rewrite my answer over here so I could see it more clearly. And then I'm going to move on to step 5, which is simplify. 3 and 1/8. 1/8 does not have to be simplified, so my final answer is 3 and 1/8. And those are the steps to follow when adding mixed numbers. So have fun.